So we're gonna move on. Cool. I got it there. Could be a pursuit, possibly. Oh, you've got the ones over here, too. Oh, huh. Which one should we go with? I say we go with the east. Yeah. Okay, cool. Jack, don't know yet. Could be a pursuit. We'll know here once we get a little closer. But we're on the eastbound 105 from the 710. Okay, it's sheriff's. Yeah, it's sheriff's, guys. Lakewood Cerritos Sheriff's. He's exiting the freeway now, Jim. Yeah, so this is a pursuit in Bellflower, Sheriff's Department in pursuit. Don't know the want yet. Okay, making a westbound turn. Ooh. Hard on the brakes here. Oh, nearly hit that car. Wow. Okay. He's in the residential area now. Yeah, they're going to ditch it. Here we go. Passengers are out, and the driver is continuing. We're in Paramount. Copy. Oh, sparks flying. I see. Paramount. It's sheriff's. Okay, copy. Don't know the want now. Yes. Okay. We know that this is the LA County Sheriff's Department that is in pursuit of this car, and it's been a dangerous pursuit on surface streets in the Paramount area, but we were also in Bellflower for some time. But we originally picked it up on the eastbound 105 freeway. It was on the eastbound 105 before he exited on Bellflower and has been on surface streets ever since. Now, this pursuit has been so dangerous that you're not going to see any units directly behind him because they're essentially in what's called the tracking mode. So airship only on this one. Unclear what the original want was, but we know that there were 3 people inside because we saw 2 of the passengers bail from the car, but the driver kept going and the pursuit continues here in Paramount. Yeah, this is Rosecrans and just passing over the freeway here. We're in the entering Compton actually. So we're entering Compton now, and again, you're not going to see any units behind the car because it's airship only on this one. Again, don't know what the original want was, but we know there were 3 people on board, and it has been extremely dangerous. He's ran every red light we've seen, and barely misses hitting that pedestrian there as he makes that northbound turn now. That's correct, Colleen. We're on Atlantic, which is a major thoroughfare here in the area. We were just a moment ago in Compton, but now we're in Linwood. And he's coming up to a red light, so we'll see what he does here. And it just switched on him, actually. It just went green. But every time he's come up to a red light, he's ran right through it. Or if he doesn't want to run through it, he'll just make a right turn instead. But you can see that this car has suffered some body damage already during the course of this pursuit. You can see that the bumper is missing. We saw sparks flying just a few minutes ago as well when the car got some air and had a hard landing. So overall, it's just been dangerous the entire time. And again, now on surface streets. These are surface streets, folks. Look at the speeds, almost 100 miles an hour. Yeah, and those 2, yeah, absolutely. And go ahead, Colleen. Yeah, let me widen up so you can kind of get a better feel for it. But he's just making the turn here onto Imperial Highway from Atlantic. So these are going to be, again, major streets here in the Linwood area. For the most part, commercial on both sides, lots of businesses. But where he abandoned, or rather where his passengers abandoned him, that was a residential area. And it looks like now he may be hopping on the freeway. So if he does, he will be getting on the southbound 710 freeway from Imperial. We haven't seen him on the 710 freeway before. When he was on the freeway earlier, he was on the 105, so now on the 710 south. Yeah, he can see the light from the helicopter, and I'll just backtrack a little bit. I will say that at some point there were units behind him. When we originally got overhead, there were units of the Sheriff's Department behind the car when he was on the eastbound 105 freeway. But once he exited off of Bellflower and he got onto those surface streets, that's when it just became too dangerous to continue to follow him from behind. So that is when the units pulled off and the airship stayed over it. But, you know, he can clearly, as you mentioned, he can clearly see the night sun. So sometimes what the airship will do in these types of situations is they'll just turn the night sun off. And then hopefully the guy or gal behind the wheel will think that they are no longer being pursued and they'll start to drive at more normal speeds. But for now, still continuing. Look at these speeds. Over 100 miles an hour here on the southbound 710 freeway. Yeah, so incredibly dangerous. But the good news is that because he is on the freeway, he's not going to have any cross traffic and no pedestrians, and he's not going to be running any red lights, obviously, but he may actually be exiting now. So all those things I just mentioned may come back into play here as he exits from the 710 freeway onto Alondra in the Compton area. Yeah, so he's doing a U-turn there. And now he's going eastbound Alondra from the off-ramp here, going over the 710 freeway. And it looks like he's going to stick to streets here. So he had a chance to get back on the freeway there if he wanted to. I thought that's maybe why he was in the Paramount area. Yeah, still about 90 to 100 miles an hour plus. Continuing here, Alondra Boulevard, still in the Paramount area. So for the most part, this pursuit has been in Paramount and in Bellflower. But most of the time that I've looked down, it seems like it's been in Paramount, though he did creep into Compton and Linwood for just a second before hopping onto the 710 freeway and making his way back to Paramount. We didn't see him collide with anything, even though there were a couple of close calls, but we never saw him actually crash into anything. So this could have been a situation where he already had the damage or it happened prior to us arriving overhead. But you can actually see that he's down to just one headlight. So even the front bumper has some damage. Yeah, it looks like he's just down to one headlight. And then, as you said, the rear lights aren't that great either. In fact, when he was on the 105 freeway earlier when we arrived overhead, he was completely blacked out, which made it really difficult to see. But now that he's on surface streets, at least he's got the headlights. And, of course, when he brakes, you can see the taillights. And we'll see what happens here as he comes up to the next light here. Barely misses hitting that car as he runs the red here on Alondra Boulevard in Paramount. So at this point, it's not clear if they're in custody, but I'll tell you that as soon as they exited the vehicle, the airship called out their exact location, and there were units close enough to come to the area and hopefully take them into custody. But at this point, I can't confirm whether they were taken into custody or not. Even if they were not willful participants of this pursuit, they will still be taken into custody as if they were. And then, of course, once they go down to the station and officers have time to interrogate everyone about what happened, then they will release them if they had nothing to do with this. But for now, the focus here from the Sheriff's Department is going to be on the individual behind the wheel. Again, at this point, we don't know if it's a man or a woman, but the two passengers that exited the car were men. There very well could be an additional passenger or two. This type of car is going to fit at least 5 people. We saw 2 exit. We know there's one behind the wheel, so there possibly could be up to 2 more. Yeah, we actually were on another pursuit. We were covering another chase on the 710 freeway that exited in Monterey Park near the sheriff's headquarters there at the 710 and the 10. So we were covering that pursuit, and then it was after that pursuit that my pilot, Jim Pollard, actually spotted some vehicles running with their lights and sirens on the 105 freeway. We came to check it out, and then that's when we learned that it was, in fact, a Sheriff's Department pursuit. And it wasn't on the freeway, though, for long before he exited on Bellflower Boulevard, and it's been on surface streets for the most part until he got on the 710, but making a U-turn here on Downey with Across the Flower, and there are the units. So those are the units that we were waiting to arrive on scene, and now they're going to get behind the car. Now, if they get behind the car, it's because they realize that the tracking mode is not working. Usually they will go into tracking mode to get the driver to slow down, but in this case, we've seen that clearly he's not slowing down for anyone or anything. So they've got really nothing to lose by getting behind him now, but he's entering the freeway, so that does change things a little bit, because then that means that the California Highway Patrol could take over the pursuit now. Yeah, it almost, I got that same feeling as well, that he was perhaps looking for a place to abandon the vehicle and take off running and just kind of bring things to an end. But once he saw those units, when he did that U-turn, I think it might have changed something in his mind, and he decided he was not ready to give up. And so for that reason, he is now back on the freeway. We're eastbound on the 91 freeway in the Long Beach area. So essentially, we are east of the 110 and west of the 710 along the 91 freeway, passing those slower moving cars, but really they're not that slow moving, though. Everyone else's freeway speeds. He's the one that's just outrageously fast compared to everybody else on the road. Yes, so he's going eastbound, rather. I'm sorry, let me look out the window real quick. Okay, you know, he's going westbound. Sometimes I get turned around when I'm just looking down all the time, but I'm actually just looking up ahead, and I can see towards LAX, so he is going westbound here on the 91 freeway, currently in the Long Beach area. Let me widen out. Yeah, I'm not seeing any units, at least no units with their lights on. So at this point, if there are any units, they're trailing behind with their lights off, so that, again, this person will think that he or she is no longer being pursued and hopefully slow down just a little bit. But I'll tell you, because we're on the freeway, it just makes sense to get CHP involved, so I can guarantee you that those calls are being made to get the California Highway Patrol to come out here and follow this vehicle, since he is on the freeway, and of course the CHP is going to be the police of our freeways here in California, so they're going to be best equipped to follow this pursuit if he continues on the freeway. They actually haven't talked about it at all, and I think it's just because he has no rhyme or reason to his driving. Even though he stayed in Paramount for a while, he was never just circling the same streets. And so for that reason, it made it difficult to figure out where he was going to go and where they could possibly place a spike strip where he would run it over. And as you mentioned, pit maneuver at these speeds, just not going to happen. But fortunately, it's a smaller car. So were he to slow down his speeds, then they could possibly try it. But at this point, just at the speed that he's going at, they just can't. And the other thing we got to take into account is he armed? At this point, we don't know what the original want was other than that it was a failure to yield. So if the officers know a little bit more about the original want than we do, if they perhaps know that he is armed, then that could really affect whether or not they do a pit maneuver, because they wouldn't want to put their officers in a situation where they would pit a car with a person inside who is possibly armed. Yeah, he's still very fast. You see the speeds there, about almost 90 miles an hour here, and he's still westbound on the 91 freeway. So he's going to be coming up to the 10 freeway. I'm sorry, the 110 freeway, rather, the Harbor Freeway. So at that point, essentially, the 91 comes to an end, and it just becomes a surface street at that point. So he could stick to that, or he could transition to either the northbound 110 or southbound 110, which he hasn't been on this entire time. He's really only been on the 105, the 710, or the 91. It looks like he is transitioning to the 110, and I'll tell you here as he completes the transition if he's going north or south. At this point, it appears that he's going to be going northbound on the 110 from the 91 freeway. Yeah, so here are the units coming in, and here's the CHP unit. So the one with its lights on is CHP. The ones that aren't lit up are sheriffs. So what's happening is since we are on the freeway, and he's been on the freeway now for the last few minutes, the California Highway Patrol is going to be taking over it. So you'll see that unit with the light bar approach the vehicle here in the next minute or so. And I am hearing that the CHP is asking for permission to join the pursuit. So we should see that car get behind him here momentarily. Yeah, so the 405 was just behind us, so he missed his chance to get on that, but he, as you mentioned, he could get on the 105. So we've seen him on the 105 before, and he seemed to be really familiar with that Bellflower, Paramount area, so I wouldn't be surprised if he picks up the 105 from here. Beyond that, he would essentially be stuck on the 110 because his next chance to transition to any other freeway would be the 10, and that doesn't come up until we get to just south of downtown. Yeah, it definitely does light up their path and gives them at least some sort of indication that something's going on. Because the only unit that we saw with its lights on was that one unit of the CHP. So if you're not looking for that, you may not realize that this is a pursuit. But fortunately, because of that night sun, it's nice and bright, so the other drivers on the road would be able to see it. And ideally, what you want to do in those types of situations when you see a pursuit coming your way is, if you can safely do so, move over to the right. But as you see, if you look towards that right lane, we've got some construction coming up, which means we're going to have construction workers. That always makes for such a dangerous situation. So in this case, I'm hoping he stays in the left lane, and he's going continuing northbound here on the 110 freeway. And those lanes that you're seeing up above, those are the fast track lanes. So they may obstruct our vision here for just a moment, but going northbound 110 freeway from the 105. Yeah, exactly. Because they know what the want is, that leads us to believe that they know exactly who's behind the wheel, which means that they were able to run the license plate and it would come back to the registered owner, likely the person that they were looking for in connection with that felony vandalism case out of Bellflower. Now, we don't have any of the exact details of that specific vandalism case, but I can tell you that it was the Sheriff's Department that initially tried to pull this person over, but they failed to yield and the pursuit was on, and boy, was it on, over 110 miles an hour on the freeway. And at some point when he got into a residential area, he started slowing down. I thought everyone was going to get out of the car, but the driver stayed behind the wheel. The two male passengers got out, and the pursuit continued. Yeah, real difficult to tell, but it looks like the driver may actually be on his or her phone. So if you look right in the driver's window, you can actually see the light of what appears to be a cell phone. So perhaps texting with his buddies to figure out what they know. Obviously, he's being pursued. There's no question about that. But this person clearly still on his phone. I see sparks coming from under the vehicle. If you look just under the front tire there, you can see those sparks. So this car is it's got quite some damage. We don't know if it happened during the course of the pursuit before we arrived overhead, but clearly this car is going to have issues as this pursuit continues. He really could, and that would just make for such a dangerous situation for his fellow drivers here on the northbound side of the 110 freeway. So we really hope it doesn't come to anything like that where he endangers the lives of other people. But it looks like he's actually getting in the carpool lanes, so that's why you see him on the elevated portion, is because he's in those fast track lanes. And still northbound 110 coming up to 52nd place would be the street. Closer to Vernon would be the major. And there's the 1 unit of the CHP, 2, 3. Let's see how many more behind that. I'm seeing 4 units total. So 4 units total of the California Highway Patrol behind this driver, in addition to the LA County Sheriff airship overhead. Yeah. Yeah, correct. We're passing the Coliseum, USC, as you mentioned, and downtown LA is going to be coming up here in the next couple minutes, especially at the speeds he's traveling at. It's going to come up real fast. So the next freeway that he's going to come up to will be the 10 freeway. It'll give him a chance to go east or west from there if he wants to, or proceed northbound on the 110. Of course, he could always exit. That's going to put him into the heart of downtown. So all of those numbered streets is where he would end up. So ideally, hopefully, he stays on the freeway just to lessen that danger level when it comes to pedestrians and red lights and things of that nature that you would encounter on surface streets. Yeah, it could have been someone joining the pursuit, or it could be somebody who was going to hang back a little bit to run a traffic break, perhaps. Or sometimes they do, I'm seeing a little bit of smoke coming from the car there. I think you might have just been hard on the brakes there. But sometimes officers will do something that's called, there you go, the hood just flew up. Oh, wow. If this wasn't dangerous before, this is dangerous now. Now he's barely going to be able to see, and at the speeds that he's traveling at, boy, oh boy, this makes it so dangerous. Oh, can you imagine trying to drive like that? Yeah, so there's a Metro bus right ahead of him. We're going to lose him there for just a second, but here he comes out the other side. It looks like he's transitioning to the 10 freeway. So this looks like we're going to be going eastbound on the 10 freeway from the 110. Oh, so it looks, yeah, yeah, it looks like his hands are out. Yep. So it looks like this may be it for him. You see the officers there with their guns drawn. I see the driver's hands, so I'm going to go ahead and stay tight. And he's now down on the ground. And there's another person. Look at that. There was, in fact, another person in the vehicle. So total, that means that there would have been 4 people inside of the vehicle. You see the driver crawling in the direction of the officers. They're still giving him directions and handcuffing him. That was interesting, that's for sure. And here you see those officers there at the top of the screen. They have their guns pointed at the passenger. They'll really try to slow things down now. Now that the driver is in custody, they will slowly make those commands to the passenger and take that person into custody as well. I can guarantee you that's not what they asked him to do, that's for sure. They would never ask him to approach in that manner, but that's what he decided to do, and it got him into custody, and nobody's hurt, so that's the good news. And the CHP officers now approaching the car. They just want to clear it, make sure nobody is inside. They'll pop open the trunk. Sometimes it takes them a moment to figure out where the button is for that. So once they do, they will pop the trunk open and make sure that nobody is hiding back there. And once that's all said and done, they'll be able to clear the freeway. Again, ending here eastbound 10 freeway at Maple. Cool. They'll just clear it off the highway. Assignment desk from Alpha. Hey Jack, just checking in. They're going to clear the car from the freeway and reopen everything here in about a minute or so. Will do, thank you.